So here's the, oh no, the dog got to the chips stress test. Howdy and welcome to Ramblin' with Big Dave. I'm your host, Big Dave. Today we'll be checking out, reviewing kind of how important the air to chip ratio quality is in bags, since that is a big talk. Where some chips it feels like 80% of the bag you get is air. But does that actually do something? I've heard stories where it's supposed to like protect the chips and transport, so you don't get a bag full of broken chips. We're gonna put that to the test. I'm gonna have 3 bags here, all the same potato chip to keep the quality test the same. We're gonna keep 1 bag normal. I'm gonna fill this with barely any chips, like your name brand chips that might rhyme with days. And then I'm gonna fill this one to the brim, and we're gonna reclose these up and put them through a little stress test and see how important the air is into protecting the chip. So I'm gonna open 2 bags. I'm opening 2 bags. Ripped that one more than I should have. Since this is a cleaner rip, I'm gonna make this one the full one. So right now, I'd say these are 60% chips, 40% air. So this one's gonna be like 99% chips. So we have this one pretty full. It's gonna be hard to close it back up, but we're gonna get it airtight again like it should be, exactly how it's gonna be sold in the store. This one, I'd say that's good. So right now, this is how many chips are in the bag. I'd say about 5% is chips, 90 to 95 is air. Let's get these things reclosed. I'm using industrial tape like they would in the warehouse. I learned this trick from UPS, so I know this is gonna work. Anytime you have a broken package or something, you just tape that sucker back up, and it's good to go. It doesn't care if it's Omaha steaks that needs to be airtight to keep the ice nice and cold, or a package of pants. So I'm going to use what they taught me in UPS. And the important thing is it's more about quickness than it is about actually getting it closed. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to just go fucking... And then you don't actually want to rip the tape. You just want to, you don't want to make a clean, you don't actually want to make a clean incision. What the fuck is this tape made out of? There's like string inside this tape. Fucking hell. So this is the first bag. This is the bag with like 90-95% chips, nice and sealed up, just like they would sell on the shelves, or just like how UPS would deliver it to your house. So now we're gonna tape up this bag. You're gonna want to start it where the hole actually is. Then you just go, I do want, just so we can tell. Now, just to keep the quality control the same, we're going to treat each one of these as if this was UPS shipped, since this is 2019 and you can get anything shipped to your house. So I'm going to do the one final drop-off, the delivery. So even the... So, the delivery was the first test. What the big guys, the big companies are going to want you to think is the bag with the least amount of air is going to have none of these should be broken. A couple of these should be cracked, but this is the one with 40% air. And then this one should just be almost crumbs. But we're going to go through a few more tests, like the grocery store drop. You know, You're going to your car, you're carrying a bunch of stuff, and then you just drop the bags. Oh no, you're gonna have broken chips. For our next test, we're gonna do the giving the bag to a 4-year-old or someone who doesn't know how to open a chip bag stress test. So I'm gonna start with the small bag. The 99% chip bag. And finally the bag that's, you know, what you're gonna get off the shelf. Next, we're gonna do a little rain test because, you know, sometimes when you're bringing your groceries in, it might be drizzling a wee bit. So we're gonna bring on the rain. Oh look, it's raining just like I asked it for. Ain't that a coincidence? And it stopped just when I needed it to. Now, sometimes though, it ain't like a movie where it's a nice little drizzle. It's almost like a monsoon. And these bags are gonna get a lot more wet than what just happened. So now we're gonna bring it up a notch and do the it's raining like motherfucking cats and dogs stress test. So I'm gonna simulate the monsoon in my pond, my mom's pond. We're gonna start off with the one with the least amount of chips. Is this in frame even? I'm only doing this once. Now there's no fish. There's no fish in this pond, so we ain't gotta worry about the salt leaking out. But since this is the one with the most air, nothing should happen to it. So I'm gonna just, like it's a monsoon, oh, this water smells. I want to go with the heaviest because that's going to create the most amount of splash. Monsoon test number 2. And finally, the test control, the 40% air. All right, we're gonna do the oh shit, the dog got to the bags stress test. Now, I don't wanna harm my dogs. I'm pretty sure too much sodium ain't good for them, so I'm gonna simulate it with this metal rake. So here's the oh no, the dog got to the chips stress test. I may not have any more tape, but I have more bags. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna just put this in the blue bag, tie it up, just so we can keep the air in the chip bag safe. Now for the final test, we're gonna be testing it if you eat at a friend's house who only utensils are knives, and he just likes to show off a little bit. So the only way he'd allow it being opened is with a knife. You know, some people spend like 40 minutes setting up their frames. I do mine in about 12 seconds. So, got my knife. We're gonna open each one of these up, and then we're gonna look at the contents, see how much of the air actually saved it. And we'll see how BS it is, or not BS, that these companies are not even filling their chip bags with the proper amount of product per size. Oh shite, I dropped the knife, that was so bad. So I'm just gonna cut it until I have a big enough incision where I can pour some chips out. It's like a cocoon. You ever seen Pod People? That movie gets a lot of shit, but I like that movie growing up. I thought it was decent. All right, Vinny, let's see what we got here. It's like a burrito bag. So we're gonna have, I'm gonna put the plates in order from least amount of air to most amount of air. So since that was the most amount of air, I'm gonna open up the middle one, which would be the blue one. I gotta be careful, this is a glass table. I don't like holding the bags, they're kind of slimy and gross from the pond. Like I said, there really ain't nothing living in there, so it's just an ecosystem of fucking things that ain't animals. Oh, that's gross. So now I'm going to show you the chips from the most amount of air, which should be the biggest protection, to the least amount of air, which should be the most crumbled up chips. And I think it's actually interesting what we got. So this is the most air. As you see, it's almost fucking dust. This is the ones I was expecting I was expecting maybe one chip to be broken, but I was really expecting the whole thing to be okay. The middle one, it looks worse than it is, but as you see, that's a full chip. And this one definitely has larger pieces than the one that was almost all air. And then if we look at the one that was almost no air, we get this, which is kind of a 50-50 mix. So, out of the three, which one do I recommend? Honestly, at first glance, it looks like the manufacturer bag, just the chips alone, are the best. But the one with the most amount of chips got the most soaked. But it looks like most of them are intact. It looks like the breaking ratio is just a wee less on the chips that were completely packed in the bag versus the company brand. The other thing though is somehow with the manufacturer's bag, dirt got in the bag. And all the other bags have no dirt. The few bits and pieces of dirt that's on the other two, that's from the outside of the bag, from the pond. So I feel like this is if the manufacturer put something in the bag so it could tell when it was roughhoused too much. And this means it's gotten its life. And it'll just start emitting dirt into the bag to force the person to throw it out because they can't get a refund. They already opened it and they've been eating from it and buy a new bag. And I think that's BS. You shouldn't have to do that. And more chips break in that bag than if they were putting... I honestly thought the one with no air was gonna... the one with the most air was gonna do the most protection. But it didn't. The opposite happened. They were so crammed in there, they couldn't move, they couldn't break. So this is what I suggest you do, and I suggest you buying your chips in bulk, getting yourself a closed lid container, putting them in there, and do it like that. If you're afraid of monsoons, if you're in a place that rains heavily and you gotta like bring those chips into the car, into the building. The one thing I'll say this, the one with the most air didn't get any water in it. The manufacturer's bag didn't get any water in it. But the bag with almost no air, water got into. So keeping it in that container might run the risk of having wet chips if it rains hard. Then I would suggest, see, I wouldn't buy in bulk. I would buy off-brand manufactured chips, because they're going to be the same exact thing as the big guys, but don't buy in bulk because it's just going to turn to dirt. So there. If you live in a pretty regular area that don't get a lot of rain, buy it in bulk, throw it in a container. Hope you enjoyed this episode. This has been your host, Big Dave. Thank you for watching. Thank you for getting this far. I hope you learned something. I hope you took something away from this. Hit that like and subscribe. We reached 20 subscribers. That's pretty good, I think. Pretty good.